We would end up with too much stuff if that was the case. Anyway, back to my chat with new author Lee Marks. Lee has worked for very many years in the domestic violence sector, in the support side of things, in particular with male victims of domestic violence. He's now written a book about it, about his knowledge, about some of the case studies he's dealt with, and as a guide, a self-help guide, if you like, for those victims, in order to get them to, well, recognise whether or not they are a victim, then talk about it and put a stop to it. The book is called Break the Silence, and Lee popped into the studio earlier on, along with his friend and colleague Josh, who has also edited the book for him. Now, we got to talking about domestic violence on the whole, in particular male victims, as was the sort of the main subject of this particular conversation, and the form of violence and abuse that they undergo. So is it coercive control? Is it psychological? Is it physical?
I mean, certainly you find for males, yes, there is physical when it comes to males, usually, and a lot of the examples you see when it comes to physical are usually a lot more violent, usually with weapons. But on the whole, physical isn't the big one when it comes to men. It's more the emotional and psychological
side, yeah.
It's a can of worms.
Yeah,
it is.
And the start is to get it out there. So how long did it take to, well, you said the book suddenly flowed.
Yeah.
And have you got a number of particular cases in there?
It's what we've done. We haven't specifically put it as such used a person's name. We've used the overview of their experiences to put that information across, because the ones that I've used, I certainly think that back when I worked within the service, when I was sharing these stories, and some of them are more recent ones that I've had shared with me outside of working in domestic abuse, but people still asking my advice around what they should do in a situation. And the types of example that are in there are things that are coming up time after time after time. So it seems that there are more people suffering those similar sort of things. So what we're hoping is, by using those experiences, men are going to read that and think, oh, actually, that happens to me. I'd never thought about it in this way before. And it really, breaking the silence, about opening their eyes and being able to see what it is that they're actually suffering.
And would this book be helpful to women?
I think so.
What about women who, because for people who are perpetrators of domestic violence, it's not always their choice of way to react. It's not necessarily premeditated. Am I right?
You are. In terms of being the perpetrator, because that's where I work now.
That's your area.
So you work with perpetrators of domestic abuse.
Yes, I do.
So you work with them
genders,
to modify their own behaviour.
Yeah. So it's generally a case of working with them in aspects of behavioural change, and also supporting them, whether that be via mental health services, anything in regards to so their support with children, if children's services are involved, coordinating with, say, local independent domestic violence advisors, police, social care, anyone and everyone involved within the case, and they are actively involved with Drive. We can work with them for up to a year and provide support in regards to that. And because we are a pilot at the moment till March next year, the level of change that we are seeing, me and my colleagues, in regards to, say, the perpetrators, in terms of their behavioural change, how they're seeing things, their levels of empathy, they understand, and they genuinely want to change their behaviour. They do not want to be seen as this monster that can't be helped. That because of the backgrounds, it can also, it's a case of considering ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, society, the idea of masculinity, the way they've been brought up in, first of all, as a combination of those factors, and whether there was any aspects of domestic abuse, mental health, substance misuse within that as well.
I'm going to go back to it, can of worms. It's a massive, massive subject. So this book is there for everybody, for male and female victims, and perpetrators as well. And it's to break the silence, to get it talked about.
We've had a lot of female colleagues and females that have bought the book to read it, that have read it and said, wow, didn't realise just how many things that men suffer as victims of abuse are very, very much the same as ours. There's a lot of things that men and women suffer that are the same, and there are some big differences as well.
Exactly. I mean, abuse is abuse in that context, but understanding the dynamics of each gender is incredibly important. Yeah. But the main big picture side of it is this behaviour is not acceptable. You are not alone. Support is available. We want to help.
Well, guys, well done for bringing it out there, getting it out there to for everybody to talk about and do exactly what it says on the tin. Yeah. Will you let me know about how the project develops and
absolutely.
What sort of response you get and that sort of thing? Thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah. Absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
Fascinating conversation, Lee, Josh. Thank you. Okay, so it's Lee Marks, Break the Silence, and the website is www.breakthesilenceuk.co.uk. Type that in and you will come up with all the details and the blog surrounding the book, a bit of detail about Lee himself, and there's a link there to buy the book on Amazon if it is a subject that resonates with you and you want to read more about it.